Rain hammered the glass walls of Vance Tower while Manhattan bled gold beneath the storm. Roman Vance, 38 years old, untouchable, feared, stood in his penthouse office holding a phone that had just delivered the worst news of his life. His girlfriend vanished 3 hours before the most dangerous dinner meeting of his career. Across town, Vincent Castellano was already seated at Delmonico's, waiting. One empty chair at that table could destroy everything Roman had built. One sign of weakness could bury him. So he did the only thing a desperate man could do. He grabbed the most invisible woman in his empire, his plain, forgettable secretary, shoved her into a blood-red dress, and dragged her into the lion's den. By the time appetizers arrived, Vincent Castellano would realize the terrifying truth. The woman pouring his coffee had been secretly running Roman's empire for 4 years, and nothing would ever be the same again. If you want to see how far this story travels, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where this goes. But the call came at 6:47 p.m. Roman Vance was standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching rain turn Manhattan into a smeared watercolor of brake lights and neon, when his phone buzzed against the glass desk behind him. He didn't move right away. Calls at this hour were rarely good news, and tonight, of all nights, he needed everything to go perfectly. He turned, grabbed the phone. The voice on the other end belonged to Marco, his driver. The words came out fast and jagged. "Boss, she's gone." Roman's jaw tightened. "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean, she's not at the apartment. Doors wide open. Closets half empty. No note, nothing." He closed his eyes, felt the weight of it settle into his chest like wet concrete. "When?" "Sometime between 4 and now. Building security says she left with 2 suitcases around 4:30. Alone." Roman didn't ask why. He already knew. Gabrielle had been pulling away for weeks, showing up late to dinners, dodging questions, staring at him like he was a stranger. He'd ignored it because ignoring problems was easier than solving them, and because tonight mattered more than she did. Tonight was Vincent Castellano. Tonight was survival. "Find her," Roman said flatly. "Boss, the meeting's in an hour." "I know what time it is." Castellano's people confirmed he's already at Delmonico's. "If you show up alone, I won't." He hung up. Stood there for a moment, staring at his reflection in the dark glass. 38 years old, 6 feet 2 inches of tailored wool and controlled violence. Hair slicked back, jaw sharp enough to cut, eyes that had watched men beg and bleed and break. Roman Vance didn't lose control. Roman Vance didn't panic. But the clock on the wall said 6:51 p.m., and Vincent Castellano was already seated at the most important table in the city, waiting to see if Roman had the spine to sit across from him. Roman turned and walked out of his office. The hallway was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the muffled bass of traffic 42 floors below. He moved past empty cubicles and dark conference rooms until he reached the assistant's desk near the elevator bay. Ara Quinn was still there. Of course she was. Ara was always there. 4 years of late nights and early mornings, and never a single complaint. She sat hunched over her keyboard, fingers moving fast across the keys, her face lit by the cold glow of the monitor. She wore the same thing she always wore: an oversized gray cardigan, a white button-up blouse, black slacks that didn't fit right. Her hair was pulled back in a bun so tight it looked painful. Thick framed glasses sat crooked on her nose. She didn't look up when Roman stopped in front of her desk. "Ara?" Her fingers paused. She glanced up. "Yes, Mr. Vance?" "You own a dress?" Her brow furrowed. "I'm sorry?" "A dress, something you'd wear to dinner." She blinked. I suppose I have something at home." "No time for that." He pulled out his phone, thumbed through his contacts, hit a number. It rang twice before a woman's voice answered. "Celeste, Roman Vance. I need a dress delivered to my office in the next 20 minutes. Size, what are you, a 6? Ara's face went red. "Mr. Vance, I don't—" "6, Roman said into the phone. "Something red, fitted, elegant but not flashy. Shoes too, size 7. 7.5, Ara said quietly. 7.5, Roman repeated. "Makeup, hair kit, everything. 20 minutes. He hung up, looked at Ara. You're coming with me. She stared at him like he'd just asked her to jump off the roof. I'm sorry, what? Dinner meeting, Del Monaco's. You're filling in. Filling in for Gabrielle's gone. Meeting starts at 8. I need someone sitting next to me who won't embarrass me. That's you. Ara sat back in her chair. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Mr. Vance, I don't think... I'm not asking. His voice was flat, final. You've been working for me for 4 years. You know how this world operates. You know who Vincent Castellano is. You know what happens if I walk into that room alone looking weak. But I'm not... Not what? Not pretty enough? Not polished enough? Roman leaned forward, palms flat on her desk. I don't need pretty. I need invisible. I need someone who'll sit there, smile when necessary, and keep her mouth shut. You've been doing that for 4 years. Tonight's no different. Ada's hands curled into fists on her lap. Her face had gone from red to pale. You want me to be decoration? I want you to help me survive the next 3 hours. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just sat there staring at him with those big brown eyes magnified behind her glasses. Roman could see the gears turning in her head, the calculations, the weighing of options. Ara Quinn was smarter than she looked, smarter than most people in this building. He'd known that from the first week she started working for him. She caught mistakes no one else saw, anticipated problems before they happened, filed reports that were so precise they read like surgery. But she was also quiet, obedient, forgettable, which made her perfect. Okay, she said finally. Roman straightened. Good. Celeste will be here in 15 minutes. Get ready. He turned and walked back toward his office before she could change her mind. The dress arrived in 12 minutes. Celeste came through the elevator doors like a hurricane in heels, trailing 2 assistants carrying garment bags and makeup cases. She was a rail-thin woman in her 50s with silver hair and a permanent expression of mild disapproval. She'd been dressing Roman's mother for 2 decades and had seen enough Vance family chaos to be unshakable. Where is she? Celeste asked without preamble. Roman nodded toward Ara's desk. Celeste's eyes flicked over, took in the cardigan and glasses and hunched posture, and her mouth tightened into something that might have been a smile or a grimace, hard to tell. Follow me, darling, Celeste said, sweeping past Ara's desk toward the executive bathroom. We have work to do. Ara stood, hesitated, glanced at Roman. Go, he said. She went. Roman paced his office for the next 20 minutes, checked his watch, checked his phone, checked the window. Rain still falling, the city still burning below. Marco texted twice asking for updates. Roman ignored him. Vincent Castellano's name sat like a stone in his gut. Vincent wasn't just another rival. He was old school, Brooklyn-born, third-generation crime lord with roots so deep in the city's infrastructure that half the judges and union bosses answered to him before they answered to the law. He controlled the docks, the construction contracts, the waste management routes. His family had been moving heroin and arms through the eastern seaboard since the 70s. And 2 months ago, Vincent had made it clear he wanted a piece of Roman's operation. Not a partnership, a takeover. The dinner tonight was supposed to be a negotiation, a chance to find common ground. But Roman knew better. Men like Vincent didn't negotiate. They tested, they pushed, they looked for cracks. And if they found one, they drove a knife straight through it. Roman's phone buzzed. Marco again. Car's downstairs, ready when you are. Roman pocketed the phone, straightened his tie, took a breath. Then he walked out of his office and stopped cold in the hallway. Ara Quinn stood near the elevator. She didn't look like Ara Quinn anymore. The gray cardigan was gone. The baggy slacks were gone. The crooked glasses were gone. In their place was a woman Roman didn't recognize. The dress Celeste had chosen was red. Not fire engine red, but deep crimson. The color of wine stains and old blood. It wrapped around Ara's frame like it had been sewn onto her. Fitted through the waist, modest neckline. Hem just above the knee. Elegant without trying too hard. Her hair was down. Dark. Glossy. Falling in soft waves past her shoulders. Her face was different too. Celeste had done something with makeup that sharpened Ara's cheekbones, made her eyes look enormous, turned her mouth into something that looked almost dangerous. No glasses. Contacts, probably. She stood there in heels that made her almost Roman's height, holding a small black clutch, looking like she'd been doing this her entire life. Roman stared. Ara's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. Will this work? Roman blinked, found his voice. Yeah, that'll work. The Bentley was waiting at the curb when they stepped out into the rain. Marco held the door open, his face carefully neutral as Ara slid into the back seat. Roman followed. The door shut. The world outside turned into streaks of water and light. Marco pulled into traffic. Ara sat stiff beside him, hands folded in her lap, staring straight ahead. Roman could feel the tension radiating off her like heat. He loosened his tie, glanced sideways. Relax. I'm relaxed. You look like you're about to throw up. I'm fine, Roman sighed. Listen, all you have to do is sit there, look pretty, smile when Vincent makes a joke, laugh if he tells a story. Don't offer opinions, don't ask questions, just exist. Ara turned her head, looked at him. Decoration. Yeah. Got it. They didn't talk for the rest of the drive. Delmonico sat on a quiet corner in Tribeca, tucked between a gallery and a wine bar. From the outside, it looked like nothing. Unmarked door, no sign, just a brass number plate that read 47. But inside was a different world. Old money elegance, dark wood, candlelight, tables spaced far enough apart that conversations stayed private. It was the kind of place where senators and mob bosses ate side by side and nobody blinked. Roman had been coming here for 10 years. Tonight felt different. Marco pulled up to the curb, killed the engine, turned in his seat. You want me to wait? Yeah, Roman said. Stay close. Marco nodded. Roman stepped out into the rain, came around to Ara's side, opened the door, offered his hand. She took it. Her fingers were cold. She stepped out onto the sidewalk, wobbled slightly in the heels, then caught herself. You okay? Fine, she said again. They walked to the door. Inside the maitre d', a thin man with silver hair and a tuxedo that probably cost more than most people's rent, greeted them with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Mr. Vance, good evening. Your party is waiting. Roman nodded. The maitre d' led them through the dining room. Eyes followed. Roman was used to that. But tonight, the eyes weren't just on him. They were on Ara. She walked beside him with her chin up, her posture perfect, her face calm. She looked like she belonged here. Roman felt something twist in his chest. He ignored it. The private dining room was at the back of the restaurant, behind a heavy oak door. The maitre d' pushed it open, stepped aside. Vincent Castellano sat at the head of a long table, a glass of red wine in one hand, his phone in the other. He was a broad man in his mid-50s, with iron-gray hair, a thick neck, and hands that looked like they'd been carved from stone. He wore a navy suit that fit him like armor. Two men stood behind him, bodyguards, silent and still. Vincent looked up as Roman entered. His eyes flicked to Ara, stayed there. Roman felt the room shift. Vincent stood, slowly. His gaze didn't leave Ara's face. He set his wine glass down, took a step forward. Well, Vincent said quietly, this is unexpected. Roman moved to the table, pulled out a chair for Ara. She sat without a word. Roman took the seat beside her. Gabrielle couldn't make it. Ara was kind enough to step in. Vincent didn't sit back down. He stood there, still staring at Ara like he was looking at a ghost. Ara Quinn. Ara's expression didn't change. Mr. Castellano. You two know each other? Roman asked carefully. No, Vincent said, but his voice was tight, controlled. But I know that face. Roman's hand curled into a fist under the table. What are you talking about? Vincent finally tore his gaze away from Ara and looked at Roman. You have any idea who you brought to my table? My assistant. Vincent laughed. It was a short, ugly sound. Your assistant. He sat back down, picked up his wine, took a long drink. When he set the glass down, his smile was gone. Roman, I've been in this business for 30 years. I know how to read people. I know how to read faces. And I'm telling you right now, the woman sitting next to you isn't just your assistant. Ara didn't flinch, didn't blink, just sat there with her hands folded on the table, watching Vincent like he was a bug under glass. Roman's pulse hammered in his throat. Then who is she? Vincent leaned back in his chair, studied Ara like she was a painting in a museum. That's a very good question. Dinner was served in silence. The first course came, oysters on ice. Vincent ate methodically, never taking his eyes off Ara. Roman barely touched his plate. Ara sipped water and stared at the candle burning in the center of the table. The second course arrived. Pasta, rich and heavy with cream and truffle oil. Vincent finally spoke. So, he said, twirling his fork, let's talk business. Roman forced himself to focus. That's why we're here. Good. Vincent took a bite, chewed slowly, swallowed. I want 50%. Roman's stomach dropped. 50% of what? Everything. Your roots, your contracts, your connections. I want half. That's not a partnership. That's a takeover. Call it what you want, Vincent said. But I'm not leaving this table without an agreement. Roman's jaw tightened. And if I say no, Vincent smiled. Then you walk out of here tonight, and by tomorrow morning, every operation you run will have a federal task force breathing down its neck. I've got judges. I've got DAs. I've got cops on 3 precincts. 1 phone call, Roman. That's all it takes. Roman's hand twitched toward his water glass. Stopped. He could feel Ara's presence beside him like a live wire. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice. That's not a choice. Sure it is, Vincent said. You can walk away with half your empire intact, or you can lose everything and spend the next decade in court trying to stay out of prison. Which sounds better? Roman opened his mouth to respond. Ara spoke first. You owe Dominic Marchetti $2 million. The room went silent. Vincent's fork stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly, turned to look at Ara. What did you just say? Ara's voice was soft, calm, almost pleasant. Dominic Marchetti, Philadelphia. You borrowed $2 million 3 months ago to cover losses from the Newark dock situation. The loan came with 22% interest compounded monthly. You're currently 6 weeks behind on payments. Vincent's face went pale, then red. How the hell do you... Your accountant is sleeping with your nephew's ex-wife, Ara continued, still in that same pleasant tone. She has access to your offshore accounts. She talks when she drinks. And Dominic Marchetti doesn't forgive debts. Roman stared at her. His brain couldn't process what he was hearing. Vincent's hands curled into fists on the table. You're lying. Am I? Ara tilted her head slightly. Call him. Ask him yourself. Or better yet, check your account in the Caymans. The one ending in 7739. You'll notice the last wire transfer didn't clear. Dominic's people froze it yesterday. Vincent didn't move, didn't breathe. Ara reached for her water glass, took a sip, set it down. If you push Roman tonight, I'll make sure Dominic knows exactly where to find you. And unlike Roman, Dominic doesn't negotiate. The silence that followed was so thick Roman could taste it. Vincent's jaw worked, his eyes burned, but he didn't speak. Ara folded her hands on the table again. So, here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away from this table with nothing. No partnership, no deal, no 50%. And in exchange, I won't tell Dominic Marchetti that you've been using his money to cover your nephew's gambling debts in Atlantic City. Vincent stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. His bodyguards moved forward. Roman tensed. But Vincent didn't attack. He just stood there, breathing hard, staring at Ara like she'd just pulled a knife out of his chest. Who the hell are you? Vincent whispered. Ara smiled. It was a small, cold thing. I'm the woman you should have noticed 4 years ago. Vincent grabbed his coat off the back of his chair, looked at Roman. This isn't over. Yes, Ara said quietly. It is. Vincent turned and walked out of the room. His bodyguards followed. The door slammed shut behind them. Roman sat frozen in his chair. Ara picked up her fork, started eating her pasta like nothing had happened. Roman's voice came out hoarse. What the hell was that? Ara glanced at him. That was me saving your life. How did you know about Marchetti? About the accounts? About the nephew's wife? Ada set her fork down, reached for her napkin, wiped her mouth. Roman, I've been managing your empire for 4 years. Did you really think I didn't know how it worked? You're my assistant. No. Ada turned to face him fully. I'm the person who keeps your empire running while you pretend to be in control. Roman's chest tightened. What are you talking about? Ara leaned back in her chair. For the first time all night, she looked tired. I have 2 master's degrees, one in finance from Wharton, one in economics from Columbia. I spent 6 years working for a private intelligence firm in D.C. before I moved to New York. I know how to read financial records. I know how to track money. I know how to manipulate investigations and redirect attention and bury evidence so deep it'll never surface. Roman's mouth went dry. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what just happened. Ada stood, smoothed her dress. Vincent Castellano walked into this room expecting to destroy you. He walked out terrified. And the only reason you're still sitting here is because I've spent the last 4 years making sure men like him can't touch you. Roman stood too. His hand shook. Why? Why what? Why would you do that? Why would you help me? Ara looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was sad, almost pitying. Because 4 years ago, I chose you, Roman. I didn't apply for a secretary job because I needed work. I applied because I needed access to your files, your contacts, your empire. And you were too arrogant to notice. Roman felt the floor drop out from under him. You've been using me. Yes. For what? Ara picked up her clutch, turned toward the door. That's a longer conversation, one we don't have time for tonight. Ara... She stopped, looked back. There's something else you need to know. What? Someone's looking for me, offering $200,000 to anyone who can identify me. I don't know who yet, but whoever it is, they're connected to something I thought I buried a long time ago. Roman's blood went cold. What does that mean? Ara's face went hard. It means my sister might still be alive. She walked out of the room. Roman stood there in the empty dining room, surrounded by half-eaten plates and dying candles, and realized that everything he thought he knew about his life had just shattered into pieces. And somewhere in the city, his phone started ringing. He pulled it out. Unknown number. He answered. A man's voice. Low, familiar, impossible. Hello, son. Roman's heart stopped, because the voice belonged to his father. Giancarlo Vance, a man who had been dead for 5 years. Roman's hand tightened around the phone until his knuckles went white. Who is this? The voice on the other end laughed, low and rough, like gravel scraped across concrete. You don't recognize your own father's voice? My father's dead. Is he? Roman's pulse hammered in his ears. He could hear traffic through the phone, distant horns, the rush of wind. Whoever this was, they were outside, moving. If this is some kind of game, no game, Roman, just a conversation that's 5 years overdue. Roman's throat closed. He forced words out. Prove it. You were 11 years old when you broke your arm falling off the dock in Staten Island. I drove you to the hospital myself. You cried the whole way there, not because of the pain, because you were afraid I'd be disappointed in you. Roman's legs went weak. He leaned against the table. Nobody knew that story. Nobody except, the funeral was fake, the voice continued. The casket was empty. Your uncle knew. Your mother didn't. And for the last 5 years, I've been watching you build an empire on a foundation I laid for you. Roman's vision blurred. Why? Because I needed to see if you were strong enough to hold it. Strong enough for what? To survive what's coming. The line went quiet for a moment. Then, you brought Ara Quinn to dinner with Vincent Castellano tonight. That was a mistake. Roman's stomach dropped. How do you... I know everything, son. I know Ara's been manipulating your operations for 4 years. I know she has degrees she never told you about. I know she's been redirecting money, controlling informants, rewriting contracts. And I know that 12 years ago, her sister Elena was supposed to die in a train accident outside Florence. Roman couldn't breathe. What are you saying? I'm saying Ara Quinn isn't who you think she is. And the moment you walked into Delmonico's with her on your arm, you painted a target on both your backs. Who's targeting us? Everyone. The voice dropped lower. But mostly me. The line went dead. Roman stood there in the empty dining room, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to silence. His mind raced. His father was alive. His father had been alive for 5 years, watching, waiting, and now the door opened behind him. Ara stepped back in. Her face was calm, but her eyes were sharp. "We need to leave. Now." Roman shoved his phone in his pocket. "Did you know?" "Know what?" "That my father's alive." Ara's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Something dark. "When did you find out?" "He just called me." "What did he say?" "That you're dangerous. That I made a mistake bringing you tonight. That we're both targets now." Roman moved toward her. "Did you know?" Ara's jaw tightened. "Not until 3 weeks ago." 3 weeks? Roman's voice cracked. "You've known for 3 weeks and didn't tell me?" "I needed proof." "I don't deal in rumors, Roman. I deal in facts. And the facts were buried so deep, it took me 2 years to find them." "What facts?" "That Giancarlo Vance didn't die in a car accident. That the body they found was someone else. That your Uncle Carlo helped stage the whole thing. And that your father's been operating from South America ever since, controlling half the eastern seaboard through shell companies and proxy votes." Roman's hands shook. Why would he fake his death? Because someone wanted him dead, and instead of fighting, he disappeared. Ara moved past him toward the table, started gathering her things. "We don't have time for this conversation here. Vincent's people are still outside. If they see us leave together, I don't care about Vincent right now." "You should." Ara turned to face him. "Because the moment Vincent realizes I know about Marchetti, he's going to start asking questions. And when he starts digging into my background, he's going to find things that lead him straight to your father. And then all of this," she gestured at the room, the table, the remnants of their dinner, "becomes a war we can't win." Roman stared at her. "Who are you?" "I'm the person trying to keep you alive." "That's not an answer." Ara's eyes hardened. "It's the only answer you're getting tonight. Now let's go." She walked out. Roman stood there for another beat, then followed. Kim. The Bentley was still waiting at the curb. Marco sat behind the wheel, engine running, eyes scanning the street. He straightened when Roman and Ara emerged from the restaurant. Roman opened the back door. Ara slid in. Roman followed, the door shut. The city outside turned back into streaks of rain and light. "Where to, boss?" Marco asked. "Tower," Roman said. Marco pulled into traffic. Ara sat rigid beside him, staring straight ahead. Roman could see her reflection in the window. The makeup, the dress, the perfect mask she'd worn all night. Now it looked like armor, like she was preparing for battle. "Tell me about your sister," Roman said. Ara didn't look at him. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." "That's a long story. We've got 20 minutes. Ara was quiet for a moment. Then she started talking. Her voice was flat, clinical, like she was reading from a report. "Elena Quinn was 2 years older than me. Brilliant, beautiful, reckless. She got involved with the wrong people when she was 23, a man named Matteo Castellano." Roman's chest tightened. "Vincent's son." "Nephew," Ara corrected. "Vincent's older brother Salvatore had 3 sons. Matteo was the youngest. He was charming, dangerous. Elena fell for him hard, got pregnant 6 months into the relationship. Matteo promised to marry her, promised to take care of her. But the Castellano family had other plans." "What kind of plans?" "The kind that don't include American girls with no connections and too many questions." Ara's hands curled into fists in her lap. Elena found out Matteo was moving heroin through a charity organization she volunteered at. Children's Hospital in Brooklyn. She threatened to go to the police. 2 weeks later, she was on a train to Florence to visit our grandmother. The train derailed outside the city. 43 people died. Elena was one of them. Roman's throat tightened. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." Ara finally turned to look at him. "Because I don't think she's dead." "Why?" "Because 3 weeks ago, I got an email. Anonymous. Encrypted. It contained a photograph of a woman standing outside a school in Milan. 2 children beside her. The woman looked exactly like Elena. Older, different hair, but the same face, the same scar on her left wrist from when she broke it falling off a bike when she was 9. Roman's pulse quickened. Did you respond? No, because the moment I opened that email, someone started looking for me, asking questions, offering money for information. Whoever sent that photograph wanted me to know Elena was alive, but they also wanted to see what I'd do about it. Why? I don't know yet. Otto looked back at the window. But I'm going to find out. The Bentley pulled up in front of Vance Tower. Marco killed the engine. Roman didn't move. Neither did Ara. If Elena's alive, Roman said slowly, and she's been living with the Castellano family for 12 years, then she knows everything, Ara finished, about their operations, their finances, their connections, everything, which makes her either the most valuable asset in the city or the most dangerous liability. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Roman opened the door. Come on. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer than usual. Roman stood with his hands in his pockets, watching the numbers climb. Ara stood beside him, her reflection ghostly in the polished steel doors. She'd taken off her heels, held them in one hand. Her feet were bare. There was something vulnerable about it, something human. The doors opened. The office was dark except for the security lights along the baseboards. Roman flipped a switch. Fluorescence hummed to life overhead. He moved toward his office. Ara followed. Inside, Roman went straight to the bar cart near the window, poured 2 fingers of whiskey into a glass, downed it, poured another, turned to Ara. You want one? No. He drank the second glass, set it down. Start talking. About what? Everything. Your degrees, your background, why you're really here. All of it. Ara moved to the leather chair across from his desk, sat down, crossed her legs, folded her hands in her lap. I graduated from Wharton when I was 21, Columbia at 23. I was recruited by a private intelligence firm in Washington 6 months later. I spent 4 years working for them, corporate espionage, financial tracking, building cases against people who thought they were untouchable. What kind of people? Politicians, CEOs, crime syndicates. She paused. People like you. Roman's jaw tightened. And then what? And then Elena died. Or I thought she died. And I spent the next 2 years trying to figure out what happened. I traced her last movements, talked to witnesses, bribed officials. I followed every lead I could find, and every single one pointed back to the Castellano family. So you decided to go after them? No. Ara leaned forward slightly. I decided to go after everyone connected to them, which meant going after you. Roman's stomach twisted. Why me? Because 4 years ago, your family and the Castellano family were negotiating a partnership. Your uncle Carlo was working with Vincent Castellano to merge operations. If that deal had gone through, it would have created the most powerful criminal network on the East Coast. I needed to stop it. So you got a job as my secretary. So I got a job where I'd have access to everything. Your files, your accounts, your schedule, your secrets. Ara's voice stayed calm, even. And once I was inside, I started dismantling the partnership from the shadows. I redirected shipments, altered contracts, leaked information to the right people at the right time. I made sure Vincent and your uncle couldn't trust each other, and by the time they realized what was happening, the deal was already dead. Roman felt something cold settle into his chest. You sabotaged my family's business. I saved your life, Ara said sharply. If that partnership had gone through, you would have been a junior partner in your own empire. Your uncle would have handed you over to Vincent like a gift, and the moment you became inconvenient, they would have buried you. You don't know that? Yes, I do, because I read the contracts, Roman. I saw the clauses. I know what they were planning. Ara stood, moved to the window, looked out at the city. Your Uncle Carlo sold you out the moment your father died, or the moment he thought your father died. And if I hadn't stopped it, you'd be rotting in a cell right now or feeding fish in the Hudson. Roman's hands curled into fists. Why should I believe you? Because I'm the reason you're still standing. Ara turned to face him. Every investigation that's come close to you, I've redirected it. Every informant who's tried to flip on you, I've handled them. Every contract that would have put you at risk, I've rewritten it. For 4 years, Roman, I've been the only thing standing between you and total destruction. While using me for your own agenda. Yes, to get revenge on the Castellanos, To find my sister. Ara's voice cracked slightly. Just a hairline fracture, but it was there. I didn't care about revenge. I cared about the truth. And the truth was buried so deep I had to dig through your entire operation to find it. Roman stared at her. His mind was spinning, pieces falling into place. 4 years of late nights, corrected reports, problems solved before he even knew they existed. Ara had been invisible, forgettable, the perfect camouflage. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now we figure out who's looking for me. And why. And if it's connected to my father? Ara's expression darkened. Then we have a much bigger problem than Vincent Castellano. Before Roman could respond, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Unknown number, again. He answered, put it on speaker. The voice was different this time. Female, young, shaking. Ara Quinn? Ara went rigid. Who is this? It's me. 2 words. That was all it took. Ara's face went white. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her knees buckled slightly and she grabbed the edge of the desk to steady herself. Elena? Ara's voice was barely a whisper. Yeah. The voice on the other end dissolved into tears. It's me. I'm alive. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I couldn't. Where are you? Ara's voice sharpened, focused. Elena, where are you right now? Milan. Still in Milan. Matteo, he kept me here. He told me you were dead. He said if I ever tried to contact you, they'd kill our entire family. I believed him. For 12 years I believed him. But 3 weeks ago I found out you were still alive and working for... Elena's voice broke again. Ara, you're in danger. Matteo knows where you are. He knows you're with Roman Vance, and he's coming for you. Ara's face went hard as stone. When? I don't know. Soon. He left for New York yesterday. He's bringing people with him. Soldiers. He's planning something. Something big. Does Vincent know? I don't think so. Matteo's been operating off the books for months. He's desperate, Ara. He's losing control of the family. And he thinks if he can bring you and Roman down, it'll prove he's still strong enough to lead. Roman's mind raced. Matteo Castellano, Vincent's nephew, the man who'd kept Elena prisoner for 12 years, now coming to New York to finish what he'd started. Elena, Ara said quietly, are you safe right now? For now, but if Matteo finds out I called you, he won't. I'll make sure of it. Ara's voice softened. How are the kids? Elena laughed. It was a broken sound. They're good. They don't know anything about this, about any of this. I kept them away from it as much as I could. How old are they? Lucia's 11, Marco's 9. Ara closed her eyes. You named him Marco. After Dad. Elena's voice cracked again. Ara, I need to get them out. I need to leave Milan before Matteo comes back. But I don't have papers. I don't have money. I don't have... I'll take care of it, Ara said firmly. Give me 48 hours. I'll get you passports, tickets, a place to stay, everything. How? Don't worry about how. Just stay hidden. Keep the kids close. And don't talk to anyone. Not even people you think you can trust. Okay. Elena took a shaking breath. Ara? Yeah? I missed you. Ara's face crumpled for just a second. Then she pulled it back together. I missed you too. We'll fix this, I promise. I love you. I love you too. The line went dead. Ara stood there for a long moment, phone still pressed to her ear, eyes closed. Then she lowered it slowly, opened her eyes, looked at Roman. I need your help. Roman nodded. Tell me what you need. Bescheid. They worked through the night. Roman called Marco back to the office. Then he called 3 other people he trusted. Men who'd been with him since the beginning. Men who knew how to move fast and stay quiet. By 2 in the morning, the conference room looked like a war room. Laptops open, files spread across the table. A map of New York City taped to the wall with red pins marking locations. Ara sat at the head of the table, still wearing the red dress, her hair pulled back into a messy bun. She'd found a cardigan somewhere and wrapped it around her shoulders. She looked exhausted, but her eyes were sharp, focused. Matteo Castellano landed at JFK yesterday at 3:47 p.m., she said, tapping her laptop screen. He came in on a private flight. No customs check, no record. but I've got a contact at the airport who owes me a favor. She confirmed he was traveling with 6 men, all Italian nationals, all with known ties to the Calabrian syndicate. Marco leaned forward. Calabrian? That's heavy muscle. What's he planning? Something loud, Roman said. He'd been quiet most of the night, letting Otto run the briefing, but now he stood and moved to the map. Matteo's desperate. His family's been shutting him out for years. If he wants to prove himself, he needs a big play, something that gets Vincent's attention. Like taking down a rival operation, one of the other men said. His name was Victor. Thin, nervous energy, good with numbers. He could hit one of our distribution points, make it look like he's still got teeth. Or he could go after Ara directly, Ara said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. If Matteo knows I've been working for Roman and he knows I have information about his family, then I'm a liability. He'll want me gone before I can use what I know. Roman's jaw tightened. He's not getting near you. He doesn't have to get near me. He just has to get near someone I care about. Ara pulled up another screen on her laptop. I've got an apartment in Brooklyn, Park Slope. My neighbor's an 80-year-old woman named Mrs. Chen who waters my plants when I'm working late. If Matteo's people are watching my building, they could grab her to draw me out. Then we move you, Marco said. Tonight. Get you somewhere safe. No. Ara's voice was firm. If I disappear, Matteo will escalate. He'll start burning down everything connected to me until I surface. And that puts everyone at risk. So what do you want to do? Victor asked. Ara looked at Roman. I want to go on offense. Roman studied her face. How? Matteo's operating off the books. That means Vincent doesn't know he's here. And if Vincent finds out his nephew is running an unauthorized operation in his territory, he'll shut it down himself. Otto stood, moved to the map. We leak information to Vincent, make him think Matteo's planning a coup, feed him just enough to make him paranoid, and let Vincent do our dirty work for us. Marco frowned. That's risky. If Vincent figures out we're the ones feeding him intel, he won't, Otto said, because we're not going to feed it to him directly. We're going to use intermediaries, people who don't know they're being used. She tapped a pin on the map. Vincent has a mistress. Her name's Sophia. She lives in a penthouse in Soho. She likes expensive jewelry and gossip. If we plant the right story in the right place, she'll carry it straight to Vincent. Roman felt something shift in his chest. The way Otto talked, the precision, the coldness. This wasn't the quiet secretary who'd sat at a desk outside his office for 4 years. This was someone who'd been trained to manipulate, to deceive, to win. What's the story? Roman asked. Ara turned to face him. That Matteo Castellano's been siphoning money from the family accounts to fund his own operation, that he's planning to take over Vincent's territory, and that he's been working with a federal informant to build a case against the entire Castellano network. Victor whistled low. That'll start a war. That's the point, Ara said. We make Vincent think his nephew's a traitor. Vincent eliminates the threat, and we walk away clean. And Elena? Roman asked. I'll get her and the kids out before it starts. 48 hours. That's all I need. Roman looked at the map. The pins. The faces of the men around the table. They were all watching him, waiting for his call. He'd spent the last 5 years building an empire on the belief that control meant power, that if he could manage every piece, every variable, every threat, he could stay on top. But standing here now, watching Ara Quinn turn his conference room into a tactical command center, Roman realized he'd never been in control. Not really. Ara had been pulling strings from the shadows the entire time, and the empire he thought he'd built was actually hers. The question now was whether he could live with that. Do it, Roman said. Ara nodded. Marco, I need you to make contact with Sophia tomorrow morning. Take her to breakfast. Somewhere public. Tell her you're worried about Matteo. Make it sound like you're confiding in her. Give her just enough detail to make her curious. Marco nodded. Victor, I need you to create a paper trail. Fake wire transfers showing money moving from Castellano accounts to an offshore shell company. Make it sloppy. Make it look like someone tried to cover their tracks but failed. Victor pulled out his laptop. How much money? 4 million, Ara said. Spread across 6 transactions over the last 3 months. And the federal informant angle? One of the other men asked. Leave that to me, Ara said. I've got a contact at the FBI who owes me a favor. I'll make sure the right file crosses the right desk at the right time. Roman watched her orchestrate the whole thing, watched her assign roles like pieces on a chessboard, watched her transform from his secretary into something else entirely. By the time the sun started rising over Manhattan, the plan was in motion. Roman walked Ara to the elevator at 6 in the morning. The office was empty. The city outside was just starting to wake up. Delivery trucks, early commuters, the first light bleeding across the skyline. Ara pressed the button. The elevator dinged. The doors opened. She stepped inside, turned to face him. "Thank you," she said quietly. Roman leaned against the doorframe. "For what?" "For trusting me." "I'm not sure I do." Ara smiled. It was sad. Tired. "Smart." The doors started to close. Roman's hand shot out, stopped them. "Ara, yeah? If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, then we both go down together." Ara's eyes met his. "That's how this works now, Roman. We're in this together, whether you like it or not." Roman pulled his hand back. The doors closed. He stood there in the empty hallway, listening to the elevator descend, and realized that somewhere in the last 12 hours, everything had changed. His father was alive. His empire was built on lies. And the only person who could help him survive what was coming was the woman who'd been deceiving him for 4 years. Roman's phone buzzed. He pulled it out. Text message, unknown number. Matteo Castellano checked into the Gramercy Park Hotel 20 minutes ago. Room 804. He's meeting someone at noon. I suggest you be there. No signature. Roman stared at the message. Then he called Marco. "Get the car," Roman said. "We're going hunting." The Gramercy Park Hotel sat like a dark jewel in the heart of Manhattan. Old money, old secrets. The kind of place where politicians and criminals could meet without raising eyebrows. Roman arrived at 11:45. Marco parked the Bentley half a block away. Roman walked in through the main entrance wearing a baseball cap and sunglasses. Anonymous. Forgettable. The lobby was quiet. A few guests reading newspapers. A businessman on his phone. Roman moved to the elevator. Pressed 8. The doors opened on the 8th floor. The hallway was empty except for a housekeeping cart near the far end. Roman moved quietly toward room 804, stopped outside. Pressed his ear to the door. Voices inside. 2 of them. One was Matteo. The other, Roman's blood went cold. He knew that voice. He pulled out his phone, started recording. Inside the room, Matteo Castellano was speaking Italian. Fast. Angry. The other voice responded in English. "I don't care what your uncle thinks. The deal was clear. You deliver Ara Quinn and Roman Vance. I'll give you $3 million and a clean slate with the organization. But if you can't deliver, then we have a problem." "I'll deliver," Matteo said. His English was heavily accented. "I just need more time. You've had 12 years. Elena complicated things. Elena was supposed to be dead. You said you could control her. I did control her, but she found out Otto was alive. Once that happened, well, you should have killed her." Silence. Then Matteo spoke again, quieter this time. "Elena is the mother of my children." "Then you're weak," the other voice turned sharp. "And weak men don't survive in this business. You've got 72 hours, Matteo. Deliver Ara Quinn and Roman Vance, or I'll deliver you to your uncle myself. And trust me, he's very interested in what you've been doing behind his back." Footsteps moved toward the door. Roman turned and walked quickly toward the emergency exit at the end of the hall. Slipped inside. Let the door close until only a crack remained. Through the gap, he watched the door to room 804 open. Matteo Castellano stepped out first. Dark hair. Expensive suit. Thin face with sharp cheekbones. He looked like someone who'd spent his entire life trying to prove he was dangerous. The second man followed. Roman's heart stopped. Because the second man was his uncle, Carlo Vance, his father's brother. The man who'd helped run the family business for 30 years. The man who'd delivered the eulogy at Giancarlo's funeral. The man Roman had trusted with everything. Carlo and Matteo stood in the hallway for a moment, speaking in low voices. Then they shook hands. Matteo walked toward the elevator. Carlo went the opposite direction, toward the stairwell at the other end of the floor. Roman waited until they were both gone. Then he stepped out of the emergency exit, phone still recording, and realized that every single foundation of his life had just crumbled into dust. His father was alive. His uncle was a traitor. And Ara Quinn was the only person in the world who'd been telling him the truth. Roman's phone buzzed. Another text. Same unknown number. Now you understand. The real war isn't with Vincent Castellano. It's with your own family. And if you want to survive, you need to choose a side. Choose wisely. Roman stared at the message. Then he deleted it, walked to the elevator. And when the doors opened, he stepped inside, knowing that when he walked out, he wouldn't be his father's son anymore. He'd be something else entirely. Something Ara Quinn had been training him to become for 4 years without him even realizing it. A man who could burn his own family to the ground if that's what survival required. The doors closed, and Roman Vance disappeared into the machine, descending toward a war he couldn't avoid and couldn't win alone. But he wasn't alone anymore. Not really. Because somewhere in Brooklyn, Ara Quinn was already 3 moves ahead, building an empire of her own from the wreckage of his. Roman didn't go back to the office. He sat in the Bentley outside the Gramercy Park Hotel with the engine running and the recording playing on loop through his phone. Carlo's voice, Matteo's accent, the words bleeding together until they stopped meaning anything and just became noise. White noise. The sound of his entire world collapsing. Marco sat in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, saying nothing. He'd learned a long time ago when to stay quiet. Roman's thumb hovered over Ara's contact. He needed to tell her, needed to warn her, needed to... His phone rang before he could decide. Unknown number. He answered without thinking. What? You listened to the recording. It was the same voice from the texts, male, flat, professional. Good. Now you know who's really hunting you. Who is this? Someone who's been watching this game play out for a very long time. Someone who thinks you might actually survive if you stop being stupid. Roman's grip tightened on the phone. If you've got something to say it. Your Uncle Carlo made a deal with Matteo Castellano 6 months ago. Matteo delivers you and Ara Quinn to the Calabrian Syndicate. Carlo takes over your operation, and everyone walks away rich, except you. You were always the sacrifice, Roman. The offering that keeps the real players safe. Why are you telling me this? Because I have a vested interest in keeping you alive. At least for now. The voice paused. Ara Quinn is on her way to Brooklyn right now to secure her apartment. She doesn't know Matteo's people are already there. They've been watching the building since yesterday. If she walks in alone, she's dead. Roman's heart slammed against his ribs. Where in Brooklyn? Park Slope? Prospect Park West. The brownstone with the blue door. 4th floor. The line went quiet for a beat. You've got maybe 20 minutes. I suggest you move fast. The call ended. Roman looked at Marco. Drive. Marco didn't ask where. He just hit the gas. Traffic was a nightmare. Mid-morning gridlock. Delivery trucks blocking intersections. Taxis cutting across lanes like they owned the street. Marco drove like he was fleeing a crime scene, weaving through gaps that shouldn't exist, running yellows that turned red before they cleared. Roman's phone buzzed. Text from Ara, heading home to grab some files. Back at the office by noon. His fingers moved before his brain caught up. Don't go home. It's not safe. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. What are you talking about? Matteo's people are watching your building. They're waiting for you. The dots stayed on screen for 10 seconds. Then, how do you know that? I'll explain later. Just don't go home. Too late. I'm already inside. Roman's blood turned to ice. Faster. Marco pressed harder on the gas. The Bentley lurched forward, engine roaring. They blew through a red light at Union Square. Someone honked. Marco didn't slow down. Roman tried calling Ara. It rang 4 times, went to voicemail. He tried again, same result. Come on, he muttered. Pick up. Pick up. The phone buzzed. Text message. Can't talk. Someone's in my apartment. Roman's stomach dropped. Get out. Now. Can't. They're blocking the door. How many? 2 that I can see. Are you armed? Kitchen knife. That's it. Roman closed his eyes, forced himself to think. 4th floor, brownstone, fire escape. There had to be a fire escape. Fire escape. Bedroom window. But it's rusted shut. Haven't opened it in years. Open it now. The three dots appeared, stayed there. Roman counted the seconds. 10, 20, 30. Then, can't. They're coming in. Marco, I know, boss. We're almost there. The Bentley screamed through the intersection at 7th Avenue and Flatbush. Sirens wailed somewhere behind them, but Marco didn't stop. He turned hard onto Prospect Park West, tires squealing, and the brownstones came into view. Rows of them. Identical facades, trees lining the street. Quiet. Residential. The kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Marco slammed the brakes in front of a building with a blue door. Roman was out before the car fully stopped. He hit the front door at a run. Locked. He grabbed the handle. Yanked. Nothing. He stepped back. Looked up. 4th floor. A window facing the street. The curtains were drawn. Roman pulled out his phone, texted Ara. I'm outside. Which apartment? No response. He tried calling again. Straight to voicemail. Ara! He shouted at the building. Ara Quinn! Nothing. Marco appeared beside him. Boss, we can't draw attention. I don't care. Roman stepped back further, scanned the building. The fire escape was on the side, black iron, old. Ladder pulled up to the 2nd floor. He moved toward it. Marco followed. You're not climbing that, Marco said. Watch me. Roman grabbed the bottom rung of the ladder and pulled. It didn't budge. Rusted solid. He pulled harder. Still nothing. He looked around, spotted a dumpster in the alley beside the building. Help me move that. They dragged the dumpster under the fire escape. Roman climbed on top. Reached up. His fingers caught the edge of the ladder. He pulled himself up, muscles screaming, until he got a foot on the bottom rung. The metal groaned under his weight, but held. He climbed. 2nd floor, 3rd floor, 4th floor. The window was closed, curtains drawn. Roman pressed his face to the glass. Tried to see inside. Shadows. Movement. He couldn't tell what was happening. He pulled back his elbow and slammed it into the window. The glass shattered. He reached through, unlocked it, shoved the window up, climbed inside. The apartment was silent, too silent. Roman's feet hit hardwood. Broken glass crunched under his shoes. He was in a bedroom, small, neat, a bed with a gray comforter, a desk covered in papers, books stacked everywhere. The door to the hallway was open. Roman moved toward it, slowly. His pulse hammered in his ears. Every nerve in his body screamed at him to turn around, to run, but he kept moving. The hallway was dark. He could see the living room at the end, a couch, a coffee table, and 2 men standing near the front door. One of them turned, dark suit, thick neck, dead eyes. Well, the man said in a heavy Italian accent, this just got interesting. Roman's hand moved toward his jacket. Stopped. He wasn't carrying. He never carried. That was Marco's job. And Marco was still 4 floors down. The 2nd man moved into view, younger, leaner, a gun in his hand. Roman Vance, the younger one said. Mateo's been looking for you. Where's Ara? The older man smiled. Bathroom. We were just about to have a conversation with her when you decided to make a dramatic entrance. Roman's jaw tightened. Let her go. Can't do that. Boss wants her alive. You, on the other hand. The older man shrugged. Boss didn't say anything about you. The younger one raised his gun. Roman didn't think. He just moved, grabbed the lamp off the hallway table, and hurled it at the younger man's face. The man flinched. The gun went off. The bullet punched into the wall 6 inches from Roman's head. Roman closed the distance, drove his shoulder into the younger man's chest. They went down hard. The gun skittered across the floor. The older man lunged. Roman rolled, came up on his feet. The older man swung. Roman ducked, felt the fist whistle past his ear. He drove his elbow into the man's ribs. Once, twice. The man grunted but didn't go down. Behind them, the bathroom door slammed open. Ara stepped out holding a toilet tank lid like a baseball bat. She swung it at the older man's head. The sound it made was wet and final. The man dropped like someone had cut his strings. Blood pooled on the hardwood. The younger man scrambled for his gun. Ara was faster. She kicked it away. Then she brought the tank lid down on his hand. Bones cracked. The man screamed. Stay down, Ara said coldly. The man stayed down. Roman stood there, breathing hard, staring at Ada. She still wore the dress from last night, barefoot, hair wild, blood spattered across her collarbone. She held the tank lid steady in both hands like she'd done this 100 times before. "You okay?" Roman asked. "Fine." Ada looked at the two men on the floor, one unconscious, one cradling his broken hand. "We need to leave. Now." Agreed. They moved toward the door. Roman grabbed the younger man's gun off the floor, checked the magazine. Full. He shoved it in his waistband. They were halfway down the stairs when Roman's phone buzzed. Text message. "Unknown number. Nicely done. But Matteo knows you're there. He's coming, and he's not coming alone." Roman showed the message to Ara. Her face went hard. "How far away?" she asked. "Message doesn't say." "Then we assume 5 minutes." They hit the ground floor at a run. Marco was waiting by the Bentley, driver's door open, engine running. They piled into the back. Marco punched the gas before the door fully closed. "Where to?" Marco asked. "Away from here," Roman said. "That's not a plan, boss." "It's the only plan we've got." Marco turned hard onto 7th Avenue. Behind them, 2 black SUVs appeared at the corner. They moved fast, aggressive, closing the distance. "We've got company," Marco said. Roman looked back. Through the rear window, he could see the SUVs weaving through traffic. One of them jumped the curb to pass a delivery truck. The other ran a red light. "Lose them," Roman said, "working on it." Marco turned down a side street. The SUVs followed. He cut through an alley. Garbage bins scraped against the Bentley's sides. The SUVs stayed close. Marco emerged onto 5th Avenue, hit the gas. The Bentley surged forward. Ara pulled out her phone, started typing. "What are you doing?" Roman asked. "Calling in a favor?" "What kind of favor?" "The kind that might keep us alive." She hit send, put the phone to her ear. Someone answered. Ara spoke rapidly in Italian. Roman caught maybe 1 word in 10. She was talking about locations, vehicles, numbers. Then she switched to English. 15 minutes, Brooklyn Bridge, South Exit. She paused, listened. "I don't care what it costs, just be there." She hung up. "Who was that?" Roman asked. "Someone who owes me more than money." Otto looked out the window. They were passing Grand Army Plaza. The SUVs were still behind them. "We're not going to outrun them in this car." "You have a better idea?" "Yes, we're going to give them what they want." Roman stared at her. "What?" "They want us, so we stop running." Otto met his eyes. "We turn around and we fight." "That's suicide." "No, that's the only move they won't expect." Otto leaned forward. "Marco, get us to Red Hook, the warehouse district. I'll give you the address." Marco glanced in the rearview mirror. "Boss?" Roman looked at Ara, at the blood on her collarbone, at the cold calculation in her eyes. This was the woman who'd dismantled his empire from the inside, who'd manipulated Vincent Castellano without breaking a sweat, who'd survived 12 years believing her sister was dead and still managed to build a life in the shadows. If anyone could get them out of this, it was her. "Do it," Roman said. Marco nodded, changed direction. Upright. The warehouse sat at the end of a dead-end street in Red Hook, wedged between the water and a row of abandoned buildings. Gray concrete, broken windows, graffiti covering every surface, the kind of place where people came to disappear. Marco pulled the Bentley inside through a bay door that screeched when it opened, killed the engine. The SUVs were 2 blocks behind, maybe less. Ara was out of the car before it fully stopped. She moved to the far wall where a stack of crates sat covered in tarps, started pulling them down. "What are you looking for?" Roman asked. "Insurance." She found what she wanted on the 3rd crate, a long metal case. She popped the latches. Inside were 2 handguns, a shotgun, and enough ammunition to start a small war. Roman stared. "How long has this been here?" 3 years. Ada pulled out one of the handguns. "Check the magazine." Chambered around. "I have places like this all over the city, just in case." "In case of what?" "In case everything went wrong." She tossed him the second handgun. "Which it just did." Outside, engines growled, tires squealed. The SUVs had arrived. Ara moved to a window, looked out. 6 men, maybe 7. Matteo's with them. Roman joined her. Through the grimy glass, he could see the SUVs parked in a semicircle outside. Doors opening, men climbing out, all of them armed. And in the center, wearing an expensive suit and a smile that looked carved from stone, was Matteo Castellano. "This was a trap," Roman said quietly. "I know. They wanted us to come here." "I know that too." Roman turned to look at her. "Then why?" "Because I needed to know who sent you that text message." Ara's eyes stayed locked on the window. "Someone's been feeding you information all night. Someone who knows things they shouldn't know. And the only way to find out who it is," a voice called out from outside, amplified, loud. "Ara Quinn, Roman Vance, we know you're in there." "Matteo, come out now and we can talk. Stay inside and this ends badly for everyone." Ara didn't move, didn't respond. "I'm going to count to 10, Matteo continued, "and then my men are coming in." "What's the play here?" Marco whispered from somewhere behind them. Ara finally stepped back from the window. "We wait." "For what?" "You'll see." Matteo started counting. 1, 2, 3. Roman's grip tightened on the gun, his heart hammered. Every instinct screamed at him to move, to do something. But Ara stood perfectly still, watching the door like she was waiting for a bus. 4, 5, 6. Marco moved to the other side of the warehouse, found cover behind a concrete pillar. Roman followed. Ara stayed where she was. 7, 8. The bay door rattled. Someone was testing it, looking for a way in. 9. Ara checked her watch. 10. The bay door exploded inward. Men poured through. 3, 4, 5. All of them with weapons raised, flashlights cutting through the dark. Matteo stayed outside, safe, watching. The first man made it 6 feet before Ara shot him. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The man went down. The others scattered, started firing back. Bullets punched into walls, shattered windows. Roman dropped low, returned fire, hit one man in the shoulder. He spun and fell. Marco fired from his position. 2 shots. Clean. Another man down, but there were too many of them. They kept coming, spreading out, taking cover. And outside, Matteo was calling for more. Ara moved, fast. She crossed the warehouse floor in a crouch, firing as she went, reached a stack of barrels near the far wall, disappeared behind them. "Ara!" Roman shouted. No response. A bullet sparked off the concrete pillar beside Roman's head. He fired back. The magazine clicked empty. He ejected it, reached for his pocket, found nothing. No spare magazines. He'd grabbed the gun off the floor in Ara's apartment and hadn't thought to check for ammunition. "Marco!" Marco tossed him a magazine. Roman caught it, reloaded, chambered around. One of Matteo's men moved toward Marco's position. Roman fired twice. The man dropped. Then the shooting stopped. Not slowly, all at once. Like someone had flipped a switch. Roman stayed low, breathing hard, listening. He could hear Marco's ragged breath from across the warehouse, could hear men shuffling outside, but no more gunfire. "Cease fire!" Matteo's voice. "Everyone, cease fire!" Roman risked a glance around the pillar. 4 men down, dead or dying. The others had pulled back toward the bay door, and standing in the entrance, backlit by daylight, was someone else. Someone Roman recognized. His Uncle Carlo. "Well," Carlo said, stepping into the warehouse. "This is unfortunate." Roman's finger tightened on the trigger. "You son of a—" "Don't!" Carlo held up a hand. "We're past that now, Roman. Way past it. So let's just talk like adults. Adults don't set ambushes for their own family." "Family." Carlo laughed. It was a bitter sound. "You want to talk about family? Let's talk about your father. Let's talk about how Giancarlo Vance built this empire on the backs of people he betrayed. How he killed my wife because she found out he was funneling money to the Calabrians. How he faked his own death and left me to clean up his mess." Roman's chest tightened. "He killed Aunt Maria? 12 years ago. Made it look like a car accident. And when I found out, when I confronted him, he told me I had 2 choices. Stay loyal and stay alive, or ask questions and end up like her." Carlo's face twisted. "So I stayed loyal. For 12 years I stayed loyal. And then 3 months ago, your father called me from Argentina and told me it was time to bring you into the fold, time to let you know the truth. Time to make you part of the real operation. What operation? The one that's been running underneath everything you think you built. Carlo moved deeper into the warehouse, slow, casual, like he was taking a walk in the park. Giancarlo never let go of the empire, Roman. He just went underground. Every major decision you've made in the last 5 years, he approved it first. Every deal, he vetted it. Every enemy, he chose them. You were never in control. You were a puppet. And I was the one pulling strings while Giancarlo whispered in my ear from 6,000 miles away. Roman felt something crack inside his chest. Why are you telling me this? Because it's over. The performance, the lie, all of it. Carlo stopped 10 feet away. Your father's coming back next week. And when he does, you're going to step aside. You're going to hand over the operation, and you're going to disappear, quietly. Or, Carlo gestured at the men standing behind him. We do this the hard way. Roman's gun stayed trained on his uncle's chest. And Ara? Ara Quinn is insurance. Matteo here. Carlo nodded toward the doorway where Matteo stood watching with those dead eyes. Has a very personal interest in making sure she disappears permanently. Something about his wife, his children, family secrets that need to stay buried. Elena's alive, Roman said. Carlo's expression didn't change. I know. You knew this whole time? Of course I knew. Giancarlo told me 12 years ago when he helped the Castellanos stage the train accident. Elena Quinn was a loose end, a liability. Matteo was supposed to kill her. Instead, he fell in love, kept her hidden, and now that little mistake is coming back to bite all of us. Carlo's eyes flicked toward the barrels where Ara had disappeared. Which is why Ara needs to die tonight. Can't have 2 Quinn sisters running around asking questions. Bad for business. Roman's finger moved to the trigger. You're not touching her. I don't have to. Carlo smiled. Matteo's going to do it for me. Matteo stepped forward, raised his gun, aimed at the barrels. And that's when the entire warehouse went dark. Not gradually, instantly. Every light, every window, like someone had draped a black sheet over the building. The only illumination came from the flashlights on the men's guns, cutting thin beams through the void. What the hell? Carlo started. The first shot came from above. One of Matteo's men dropped. The others spun, searching. Their flashlights swept the darkness, found nothing. A second shot. Another man down. It's her! Matteo shouted. Quinn! She's in the rafters! The men opened fire. Bullets punched into the ceiling, into the walls, ricocheting everywhere. Roman dropped flat. Marco did the same, a third shot, a fourth. 2 more men fell. Then silence. The flashlights stopped moving. The men stood frozen, waiting. Ara's voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I gave you a chance to walk away, Matteo. You should have taken it. Where are you? Matteo screamed. Right behind you. Matteo spun. Too slow. Ara was already there. She dropped from the rafters like a ghost. One hand grabbed his wrist, twisted. The gun clattered to the floor. Her other hand drove the knife. Where had she gotten a knife? Into his side. Just below the ribs. Precise. Surgical. Matteo gasped. Fell. Carlo raised his gun. Ara kicked it out of his hand, spun, drove her elbow into his face. Carlo's nose shattered. He went down hard. The last 2 men tried to run. Roman shot one. Marco got the other. And then it was over. The warehouse fell silent except for the sound of Matteo Castellano trying to breathe through a punctured lung. Ara stood over him, the knife still in her hand, blood dripping from the blade. Where's Giancarlo? She asked quietly. Matteo coughed, blood on his lips. Argentina. Via. Outside Buenos Aires. He's waiting for Carlo's call. When? Tomorrow. Noon. And Elena? Matteo's eyes closed. Milan. Safe house. I swear, I never hurt her. I just couldn't let her go. Ara's expression didn't change. You kept her prisoner for 12 years. I loved her. That's not love. Ara's voice was ice. That's ownership. She stood, walked away, left Matteo bleeding on the concrete floor. Roman moved toward Carlo. His uncle was trying to sit up, blood streaming from his nose. Roman grabbed him by the collar, hauled him upright. How do I find my father? Carlo laughed. It turned into a cough. You can't. He'll find you. That's how this works. That's how it's always worked. Then I guess I'll have to make him come to me. How? Roman looked at Ara. She was standing by the barrels now, watching them. Her face was spattered with blood, her dress torn, but her eyes were clear, focused, alive in a way Roman had never seen before. We're going to burn it all down, Roman said. Every operation, every connection, every dollar he's hidden. We're going to dismantle the entire network until there's nothing left. And when he comes crawling back to stop us, Roman leaned close to Carlo's ear. We'll be waiting. He let go. Carlo dropped. Roman walked toward Ara. She watched him approach. You knew, Roman said. You knew this was a trap. Yes. You knew Carlo would be here, that Matteo would be here, that my father's alive. Yes. How long? 3 weeks. Same time I found out about Elena. Ara's voice stayed steady. I've been tracking your father's movements for 2 years. Every wire transfer, every phone call, every shell company. I knew he was planning something, I just didn't know when. And then 3 weeks ago, all his operations went quiet. No movement, no communication, like he was preparing for something big. And you didn't tell me. I couldn't. Not until I knew who I could trust. Ara's eyes met his. Your uncle's been feeding information to the Castellanos for over a decade. Half your organization is compromised. If I'd told you earlier, word would have gotten back to Giancarlo, and we'd both be dead. Roman's jaw clenched. So you used me as bait. I used both of us as bait. Ara gestured at the warehouse. This was the only way to draw everyone out, to see who was working for who, to force them to show their hand. People died. Bad people. Ara's voice didn't waver. People who would have killed us if we'd given them the chance. Roman stared at her. At this woman who'd been his secretary for 4 years, who'd sat outside his office filing reports and making coffee and pretending to be invisible. This woman who'd just killed 3 men without blinking. Who are you? He whispered. Ara's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. I'm the person who's going to help you kill your father. Behind them, Marco cleared his throat. Boss, we need to move. Cops will be here soon. Roman didn't take his eyes off Ara. Can I trust you? No, Ara said. But you don't have a choice. Because right now, I'm the only person in the world who gives a damn whether you live or die. She walked past him toward the bay door, stopped, looked back. Are you coming? Roman looked at his uncle, bleeding on the floor, at Matteo, dying, at the bodies scattered across the warehouse. His whole life had been built on lies, on foundations laid by a father who was supposed to be dead but wasn't, on trust that never existed. Everything was gone now, everything except the truth. And the truth was this: if Roman wanted to survive, he had to become something different, something harder, something capable of burning down his own family and walking through the ashes without looking back. He picked up his gun, checked the magazine, looked at Ara. Yeah, he said, I'm coming. They walked out into the sunlight together, leaving the wreckage of Roman's old life bleeding out on the warehouse floor behind them. And somewhere 6,000 miles away, in a villa outside Buenos Aires, Giancarlo Vance's phone rang with a call that would never be answered, because the son he'd tried to control had just become the one thing he couldn't predict, someone with nothing left to lose. They burned the Bentley in a parking garage in Sunset Park. Marco poured gasoline over the leather seats while Roman and Ara stood watching from 20 feet away. The fire started small, a flicker. Then it caught, spread. Black smoke curled toward the concrete ceiling. The heat made the air shimmer. 6 years I drove that car, Marco said quietly. I'll buy you a new one, Roman said. It's not about the car, boss. No, it wasn't. It was about everything that car represented. The life Roman had lived, the empire he'd thought he controlled. All of it going up in flames because nothing about it had been real. They walked out before the smoke could trigger the sprinklers. Found a stolen Honda Civic 3 blocks away. Marco hotwired it in under a minute. They drove north through Brooklyn with the windows down and the radio off. Nobody spoke. Roman's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Carlo's in the wind. Left the warehouse before the cops arrived. Matteo's in critical condition, at Methodist Hospital. Vincent Castellano knows what happened. He's calling a meeting. Tonight. Midnight. The whole family. You're invited. Roman showed the message to Ara. She read it, handed the phone back. It's a trap. I know. If you go, you won't walk out. I know that too. She looked at him. So what are you going to do? Roman stared out the window at the city sliding past. Brooklyn turning into Queens, neighborhoods bleeding together. I'm going to accept the invitation. That's suicide. Maybe. Or maybe it's the only way to get to my father. Roman turned to face her. Vincent knows where Giancarlo is. He has to. They've been working together for 12 years. If I can get Vincent alone... You can't get Vincent alone. Not at a family meeting. He'll have 30 men around him, all of them armed, all of them loyal. Then I'll make him an offer he can't refuse. Ara laughed. It was a sharp sound, bitter. You sound like a bad movie. I'm serious. So am I. She leaned forward. Roman, listen to me. Vincent Castellano doesn't negotiate with people who kill his nephew. He buries them. And right now, you've got a target on your back the size of Manhattan. If you walk into that meeting, you're handing him a gift. What choice do I have? We run. We take Elena and the kids, and we disappear. New identities, new lives. Your father won't find us. Vincent won't find us. We start over. Roman studied her face. She meant it. He could see it in her eyes. The exhaustion. The weight of 4 years spent living in the shadows. She'd been fighting this war alone for so long that running probably felt like victory. But Roman wasn't built for running. I can't, he said quietly. Why not? Because my father will just do this to someone else. He'll find another puppet, build another empire on lies, and whoever comes next won't have you watching their back. There'll just be another sacrifice. Roman's jaw tightened. This ends with me, one way or another. Ara stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. Okay? Okay, we do it your way. She pulled out her phone, started typing. But we're not walking in blind. Give me 2 hours. I'll get us leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes Vincent Castellano more afraid of you than he is of your father. Ashsant. They holed up in a motel in Long Island City, the kind of place that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask for ID. Marco paid cash. They took 2 rooms on the second floor overlooking the parking lot. Roman stood under the shower for 20 minutes, letting the hot water beat against his shoulders. His knuckles were bruised from the fight in the warehouse. His ribs ached where he'd taken an elbow. Blood swirled down the drain, not all of it his. When he came out, Otto was sitting on the bed with her laptop open and 3 burner phones spread across the comforter. She'd changed into jeans and a black t-shirt she'd bought at a bodega down the street. Her hair was pulled back. No makeup. She looked younger without it, tired but focused. What are you working on? Roman asked. Vincent's financials. She didn't look up from the screen. He's got accounts in 7 countries, shell companies in 12. Most of it's buried deep. But I've been tracking his money for 3 years. I know where it moves, I know how it moves, and more importantly, she turned the laptop so Roman could see. I know who handles it for him. The screen showed a photograph of a man in his 60s, gray hair, expensive suit, cold eyes. Lawrence Chen, Otto said. Vincent's accountant. British passport. Lives in Chelsea. Does all of Vincent's offshore work. If Vincent wants to hide money, Chen makes it happen. And if Vincent wants to move money, Chen makes sure nobody's watching. So Chen has a problem. Otto pulled up another window. Bank statements, emails, text messages. He's been skimming. 2% off every major transfer. Been doing it for 8 years. Vincent doesn't know because Chen's good at covering his tracks. But I found it 6 months ago. Roman sat down beside her. How much has he stolen? 14 million, give or take. Roman whistled low. That's a death sentence if Vincent finds out. Exactly. Otto closed the laptop. Which means Chen will do whatever we ask to keep that information buried, including telling us exactly where Vincent keeps his most sensitive records. The ones he can't digitize. The ones that could destroy him if they ever surfaced. And where's that? His house. Park Slope. Same neighborhood I lived in. Basement vault, 3 feet of reinforced steel, biometric locks. The whole setup. Roman frowned. We're not breaking into Vincent Castellano's house. We don't have to. We just have to make him think we can. Ada picked up one of the burner phones, started dialing. Chen's gonna help us. The call connected. Ada spoke quickly, calmly, laying out exactly what she knew and exactly what would happen if Chen didn't cooperate. Roman only heard her side of the conversation, but he could fill in the gaps. The fear, the desperation, the realization that $14 million wasn't worth dying for. Ara hung up. He'll meet us in 2 hours, Prospect Park, the boathouse. You trust him? No, but I trust his survival instinct. Jeez. Prospect Park at sunset looked like a painting someone had left out in the rain. The colors bled together, gold and orange smearing across the surface of the lake. Joggers and cyclists and families with strollers moving through the paths like ghosts. The boathouse sat at the water's edge. White wood, peeling paint, a relic from another century. Lawrence Chen was waiting at one of the picnic tables outside. He wore chinos and a polo shirt, sunglasses even though the sun was almost gone. His hand shook as he lifted a coffee cup to his lips. Ada sat down across from him. Roman stood behind her. Marco stayed near the car 30 yards away, watching. You brought muscle, Chen said. His accent was clipped, educated. That's not very reassuring. You've been stealing from Vincent Castellano for 8 years, Ada said. I'm not here to reassure you. Chen set down his cup. What do you want? Information. About what? About the records Vincent keeps in his basement, the physical ones. Ledgers, contracts, names. I want to know what's down there, and I want to know how to get to it. Chen's jaw tightened. You're insane. If Vincent finds out I told you, he'll kill you. Ada leaned forward. But if he finds out you've been skimming $14 million from his accounts, he'll do worse than kill you. He'll make it last. He'll make it hurt. And when he's done, he'll go after your daughter in Boston, the one at MIT, Rebecca, 22 years old, double major in computer science and mathematics. Very smart, very pretty, very vulnerable. Chen went pale. You wouldn't... I wouldn't have to. Vincent would do it himself the moment he found out what you've been doing. Ada's voice stayed level. So here's your choice. You help us, and your secret stays buried. You don't. And I send everything I have to Vincent's people before sunrise. Chen closed his eyes. What do you need to know? Everything. It took him 15 minutes to lay it all out. The vault was in the sub-basement, accessible through a hidden door behind the wine cellar. 2 biometric locks, fingerprint and retinal scan, both coded to Vincent personally. No one else had access. Inside were ledgers dating back 30 years, contracts with unions, politicians, judges, names of informants, records of deals that could bring down half the criminal infrastructure in New York. Why keep physical records? Roman asked. That's insane. Vincent doesn't trust computers, Chen said. He's old school. He thinks if it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. And if it's on paper, he shrugged. He can control who sees it. How do we get past the locks? You don't. Not without Vincent. Chen looked at Ada. Unless you're planning to cut off his fingers and gouge out his eyes, which I wouldn't put past you at this point. Ada smiled. We'll find another way. There isn't another way. There's always another way. She stood. Thank you, Mr. Chen. This has been very helpful. What about the 14 million? As long as you keep your mouth shut about this conversation, I keep my mouth shut about your retirement fund. We clear? Chen nodded. They walked back to the car. Marco started the engine as they climbed in. So what's the plan? Marco asked. We go to the meeting, Ada said, and we make Vincent an offer. What kind of offer? The kind where he gives us what we want or loses everything he's built in the last 30 years. Roman looked at her. You know how to bypass the vault locks. No, but I know someone who does. Who? Ada pulled out her phone, made a call. It rang 3 times before someone answered. She spoke in rapid Italian, listened, spoke again, then hung up. Elena's in Milan, she said. She's been living in Vincent's nephew's house for 12 years, which means she's had 12 years to learn how that family operates, how they think, how they hide things. Ada turned to look at Roman. And 3 months ago, when Matteo got sloppy and started talking about business in front of her, she started taking notes. Notes about what? Everything, including Vincent's backup access codes, the ones he uses when the biometric locks malfunction. Ara's eyes glittered. Elena's sending them to me right now. Roman's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Meeting location confirmed. Red Hook, the old pier. Midnight. Come alone. They really want you dead, Marco muttered. Yeah, Roman said. They do. Dick. They spent the next 3 hours preparing. Ara made calls, moved money, contacted people Roman had never heard of. By 10 p.m., she'd assembled a team. Not soldiers, not muscle. Intelligence operatives, hackers, former federal agents who'd gone private. The kind of people who could dismantle an empire without firing a shot. What are they doing? Roman asked. Creating chaos, Ara said. By the time we walk into that meeting, every major account Vincent controls will be frozen. Every shell company will be under investigation. Every contract will be flagged for review. He'll be drowning in fires. And when we offer him a way out, he'll take it. Exactly. At 11 p.m., Roman received another text. Your father knows you're coming. He's already on a plane from Buenos Aires. He'll land at Teterboro at 4 a.m. If you're still alive by then, he wants to see you. Roman showed it to Ara. She read it, handed it back. Good. Good? The more chaos we create tonight, the less control Giancarlo has when he lands. If we can break Vincent before your father arrives, we break the entire network. No infrastructure, no support, nothing for Giancarlo to come back to. She looked at Roman. Your father built his empire by staying invisible, by controlling people from the shadows. But shadows only work when the lights are off. We're about to turn on every light in the city. At 11:45, they left the motel. Marco drove. Ara sat in the passenger seat making final calls. Roman sat in back watching the city slide past. His chest felt hollow, empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside him and left just the frame. He thought about his father, about the man he'd buried 5 years ago. The casket had been closed. Roman had assumed it was because of the accident, the fire, the damage. Now he knew the truth. There'd been no body to bury, just a performance, a magic trick designed to make Giancarlo Vance disappear so he could control everything from the shadows. And Roman had been the perfect puppet. Not anymore. They reached Red Hook at 11:58. The old pier jutted into the water like a broken finger. Abandoned warehouses lined the street. No lights, no people. Just the sound of water slapping against pilings and the distant hum of traffic on the expressway. 30 cars were parked in a semicircle facing the water. Men stood between them. Roman counted at least 50, maybe more. All of them armed, all of them watching as the Honda pulled up. Marco killed the engine. This is a bad idea, he said quietly. Probably, Roman agreed. You want me to come with you? No, I want you to stay here and keep the engine running. If this goes sideways, I'm not leaving you, boss. Roman met Marco's eyes in the rearview mirror. If this goes sideways, there won't be anything to leave. Just go. Get Ara out. That's an order. Marco's jaw worked. Then he nodded. Roman looked at Ara. You ready? No. She opened the door. But let's go anyway. They walked toward the pier side by side. The men parted to let them through. Roman could feel eyes on him, guns tracking his movement. One wrong word and this whole place would erupt. Vincent Castellano stood at the end of the pier. He wore a dark suit, no tie. His hands were in his pockets. Behind him, the Manhattan skyline glittered like broken glass across the water. Roman Vance, Vincent said, and the infamous Ara Quinn. I was starting to think you wouldn't show. I'm here, Roman said. Let's talk. Talk? Vincent laughed. You killed my nephew. You murdered 5 of my men. You destroyed a warehouse I own. And you think we're going to talk? Mateo's not dead. He's in the hospital, and the men in that warehouse were trying to kill me. Self-defense. Self-defense. Vincent's smile disappeared. You walked into my territory with her. He gestured at Ara, knowing full well what she'd done to my family. You brought chaos to my door, and now you want to negotiate. Yes. Vincent pulled a gun from his jacket, aimed it at Roman's chest. Give me one reason I shouldn't kill you right now. Because in the last 3 hours, Ara said calmly, I've frozen $38 million across 7 of your accounts. I flagged 12 of your shell companies for federal investigation. I've sent documentation of your union contracts to 3 different federal prosecutors, and I've uploaded a complete digital copy of your basement vault to a secure server that will automatically release everything to the FBI, the DOJ, and the New York Times if I don't enter a password every 6 hours. Vincent's hand didn't waver, but his eyes did, just for a second. You're bluffing. Am I? Otto pulled out her phone, turned the screen so Vincent could see it. That's a live feed from the server. Every file, every name, every transaction, it's all there. And unless you lower that gun and listen to what we have to say, it all becomes public in, she checked her watch, 4 hours and 37 minutes. Vincent stared at the screen. His finger tightened on the trigger. Roman's heart slammed against his ribs. This was it. The moment where everything either fell apart or came together. Then Vincent lowered the gun. Talk, he said coldly. Ara put away her phone. We want Giancarlo Vance. Why would I give you Giancarlo? Because he's been using you for 12 years, manipulating your operations, controlling your territory, making you think you were partners when really you were just another puppet. Ara stepped closer. 3 months ago, Giancarlo called your brother Salvatore. Told him it was time to consolidate, to merge the Castellano and Vance operations completely, to eliminate the competition and create one unified empire. Do you know what he was really saying? Vincent's jaw tightened. He was saying it was time to eliminate you, Otto continued. You're old, Vincent. 62 years old, too stuck in your ways, too old school. Giancarlo needs someone younger, someone more adaptable. He was going to have Salvatore kill you and take over the family, and by the time you realized what was happening, it would have been too late. You're lying. Call your brother. Ask him. Vincent didn't move. You can't, Otto said quietly, because Salvatore stopped taking your calls 3 weeks ago. He's been avoiding you, making excuses. And you've been pretending not to notice because the alternative is too terrifying. Vincent's face had gone pale. We can prove it, Roman said. Everything she's saying. We have records, communications. Giancarlo's been playing both our families against each other for over a decade. And the moment he lands at Teterboro at 4 a.m., he's going to finish what he started. Unless you help us stop him, Ada added. Vincent stood there for a long moment. The gun hung loose in his hand. Behind him, Manhattan sparkled. Beautiful. Poisonous. What do you want from me? Vincent asked finally. Your basement vault, Ada said. The physical records. Everything. We take them, we disappear, and you never hear from us again. In exchange, I delete everything on the server. Your accounts unfreeze, the investigations disappear, and you get to keep your empire. And Giancarlo? Giancarlo's ours, Roman said. You don't have to lift a finger. Just give us access to the vault, and we'll handle the rest. Vincent looked between them. His eyes were cold, calculating. And if I say no, then in 4 hours your entire operation becomes front-page news, Ada said. The FBI raids your house, the DOJ freezes your assets, and every person you've ever paid off turns on you to save themselves. You'll spend the rest of your life in court, or in prison, or in a grave. Vincent's finger moved back to the trigger. Roman tensed. Then Vincent holstered his gun. You've got 1 hour, he said. After that, the deal's off. And if you're not out of my house by then, my men will kill you themselves. Deal, Ada said. Vincent turned and walked away. His men followed. Engines started. Cars pulled out one by one until only the Honda remained. Roman exhaled. His legs felt weak. That was not over yet, Ada said. She was already moving back toward the car. We've got 60 minutes to get into that vault and get out before Vincent changes his mind. They climbed in. Marco hit the gas before the doors fully closed. Did that actually just work? Marco asked. For now, Roman said. They drove back through Brooklyn at 90 miles an hour. The clock on the dashboard said 12:47 a.m. By the time they reached Park Slope, it was 1:03. They parked 2 blocks from Vincent's house. A brownstone. 4 stories. Iron gate. Security cameras covering every angle. How do we get past the cameras? Roman asked. We don't. Ada pulled out her phone, sent a text. Elena's been working on this for 3 months. She's got access to Vincent's security system. She's looping the feed as we speak. Roman's phone buzzed. Text from Elena. You're clear. 10-minute loop. Move fast. They moved. Marco stayed with the car. Roman and Ara crossed the street. The front gate was locked, but Ara had the code. Punched it in. The gate clicked open. They slipped through. Up the front steps. The door was solid wood. Reinforced. Another keypad. Ara entered the code. The door opened. Inside the house was dark. Silent. Expensive furniture, art on the walls, the kind of place where every object costs more than most people made in a year. Basement, Ara whispered. They found the stairs behind the kitchen, descended into darkness. At the bottom was a wine cellar, racks of bottles stretching into shadow. Ara moved to the back wall, pressed a specific point on one of the wooden panels. It swung inward. Behind it was a steel door. 2 biometric readers, fingerprint and retinal scan. Ara pulled out her phone, pulled up a screen. Elena sent me Vincent's backup codes. They're rolling codes. Change every hour. We've got... She checked her watch. 4 minutes before they reset. She entered the first code. A green light blinked. She entered the second. Another green light. The door hissed, unsealed, swung open. Inside was a room the size of a walk-in closet. Shelves lined every wall, ledgers, file boxes, envelopes sealed with wax. 30 years of secrets stacked floor to ceiling. Take everything, Ara said. They worked fast, grabbing boxes, stuffing ledgers into bags they'd brought. Roman's arms burned, sweat dripped down his spine. The clock in his head kept ticking. 42 minutes. 41 of 40. They cleared the vault in 12 minutes. Then they heard footsteps above. Roman froze. Ara put a finger to her lips. They listened. Voices. Multiple. Moving through the house. Vincent sent people, Roman whispered, or your father got here early. Either way, they were trapped. Ara moved to the vault door, closed it, sealed them inside. What are you doing? Roman hissed. Buying time. She pulled out her phone, texted someone. Then she looked at Roman. There's another way out, a tunnel. Vincent built it 20 years ago. Emergency exit. Elena told me about it. Where? Ara moved to the back of the vault, pushed on a section of the wall. It slid inward. Behind it was a narrow passage, concrete, dark, the smell of mold and rust. This leads to the subway tunnel 2 blocks away, Ara said. We can get out through there. They grabbed the bags, crawled into the passage. The wall slid shut behind them. The tunnel was barely wide enough for Roman's shoulders. They moved in darkness, hands scraping against rough concrete. The sound of their breathing magnified in the enclosed space. Roman's chest tightened. His pulse roared in his ears. Then he saw light ahead. They emerged into a subway maintenance tunnel, fluorescent fixtures casting sickly yellow light across graffiti-covered walls. The third rail hummed with electricity 10 feet away. They climbed onto the platform, found a maintenance ladder leading up to street level, pushed open a grate. Fresh air hit Roman's face like salvation. They were 3 blocks from Vincent's house. Marco was already pulling up in the Honda. They threw the bags in the trunk, climbed in. Marco floored it. Did we get it all? He asked. Everything, Ara said. Roman's phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. Impressive. But you're not done yet. Giancarlo just landed. He's on his way to Vance Tower. He wants to meet, face to face. Father and son. One last time. If you're not there in 30 minutes, he disappears again. And this time, you'll never find him. Roman showed the text to Ara. She read it, looked up. It's a trap. I know. If you go, I have to go. Roman met her eyes. This ends tonight, one way or another. Ara stared at him. Then she nodded. Okay, but I'm coming with you. Ara, don't. Her voice was steel. We're in this together, remember? Roman remembered. Marco drove north through the empty streets. The clock said 2:34 a.m. The city looked different at this hour, quieter, darker, like something sleeping, something that could wake up violent if disturbed. They reached Vance Tower at 2:51. The building rose into the night like a blade, glass and steel catching the last of the moon. The lobby was dark except for security lights. Roman stepped out of the car. Ara followed. Marco started to get out too, but Roman stopped him. Not this time, Roman said. Boss, If we're not back in an hour, take those files to the FBI. All of them. Burn it all down. Promise me. Marco's face twisted. I promise. Roman turned and walked toward the building, Otta beside him. The glass doors slid open. They stepped inside. The elevator was waiting. They rode it to the 42nd floor in silence. Roman's hand rested on the gun in his waistband. Otta's face was calm, empty, like she'd already decided what came next. The doors opened. The office was dark, except for one light burning in Roman's corner suite. And standing at the window, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline, was a man Roman hadn't seen in 5 years. Giancarlo Vance turned to face his son. "Hello, Roman," he said. "What? We need to." "Hello, Roman," Giancarlo Vance said. "We need to talk." Roman stood frozen in the doorway. 5 years. 5 years since he'd watched them lower an empty casket into the ground. 5 years of building an empire on foundations his father had laid in secret. 5 years of being a puppet who thought he was pulling his own strings. Giancarlo looked older, grayer, but the eyes were the same, sharp, calculating, eyes that measured everything and gave away nothing. "You look surprised," Giancarlo said. Roman's hand moved toward the gun at his waist. Otta's fingers caught his wrist, stopped him. "He's not alone," she whispered. Roman scanned the shadows. Movement near the conference room. 2 figures, maybe 3, armed, waiting. Giancarlo smiled. "Smart woman. You always did know how to pick good people, Roman, even if you didn't know you were picking them." He gestured at Otta. "Miss Quinn, or should I say Mrs. Castellano, I understand congratulations are in order. Your sister's still alive. That must be quite a relief." Otta's face stayed blank. "Where's Carlo?" "My brother?" Giancarlo moved away from the window, slow, casual, like he was taking a stroll through a museum. "Carlo's exactly where he needs to be, waiting for my call, ready to clean up whatever mess comes next." He stopped 10 feet from Roman. "But I'm hoping there won't be a mess. I'm hoping we can handle this like family." "Family." Roman's voice came out hoarse, raw. "You faked your own death. You let me grieve. You let Mom grieve. You watched us bury an empty coffin, and you said nothing." "I said nothing because saying something would have gotten you killed." Giancarlo's voice hardened. "You think I disappeared for fun? You think I staged that accident because I was bored? I did it because Antonio Gallo put a $10 million contract on my head. I did it because staying alive meant becoming a ghost. And I did it because the only way to keep you safe was to make everyone believe I was dead." Antonio Gallo died 8 years ago. "Yes, in a car accident in Palermo. Very tragic. Very convenient." Giancarlo's smile returned. "I made sure of that myself, 3 years ago. Once he was gone, I could start planning my return. And part of that plan required testing you, seeing if you were strong enough to hold what I'd built." "Testing me." Roman felt something cold settle in his chest. "Carlo, Vincent, Matteo, all of it was a test? All of it was necessary." Giancarlo moved closer. "You were soft, Roman, too trusting, too willing to believe people had good intentions. I needed to burn that out of you. I needed you to understand that in this world, trust is a liability, family is a weapon, and the only person you can rely on is yourself." Roman's jaw clenched. "You destroyed my life to teach me a lesson? I shaped your life to make you strong." Giancarlo stopped directly in front of him. "And look at you now, standing here, still alive, after everything I put you through, after Carlo's betrayal, after Matteo's ambush, after Vincent's threats. You survived it all. Which means you're ready." "Ready for what?" "To take your place beside me. To run this empire the way it was meant to be run. Together. Father and son. The way it should have been from the beginning." Giancarlo's eyes glittered. "I'm offering you everything, Roman. Power, control, a seat at the table. All you have to do is say yes." Roman stared at his father, at the man who'd raised him, taught him, loved him in the only way Giancarlo Vance knew how to love, which was to say brutally, ruthlessly, without mercy. And for just a second, Roman felt the pull of it, the temptation, to step back into the role he'd always played, to let his father guide him, to accept that some people were born to lead and others were born to follow. Then he felt Otta's hand still on his wrist, steady, anchoring him. No, Roman said quietly. Giancarlo's smile faded. No? I'm not interested in your empire. I'm not interested in your lessons. I'm not interested in becoming you. Roman's voice strengthened. You want to know what I learned from the last 3 days? I learned that you're right. Trust is a liability. Family is a weapon. But the difference between us is that you think those things make you strong. I think they make you empty. Giancarlo's face went cold. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Roman pulled the gun from his waistband, aimed it at his father's chest. Tell your men to stand down. Or what? You'll shoot me? Giancarlo laughed. You don't have the spine for that, Roman. You never did. Try me. They stood like that for a long moment, father and son, gun between them, the city glittering 42 floors below. Then Giancarlo raised his hand. The figures in the shadows stepped into the light. 3 men, all armed, all watching Roman with dead eyes. Put the gun down, Giancarlo said softly, and we can still fix this. There's nothing to fix. Roman, you killed Aunt Maria. The words hung in the air like smoke. Giancarlo's expression didn't change, didn't flicker. Carlo told you that? He told me everything, how she found out you were funneling money to the Calabrians, how you made it look like an accident, how you threatened Carlo into silence. Roman's finger tightened on the trigger. She was family. She trusted you, and you murdered her because she asked questions. I protected the organization, Giancarlo said flatly. Maria was going to expose us. She was going to destroy everything we'd built. I did what needed to be done. You killed your brother's wife. I saved my brother's life. If Maria had gone to the authorities, Carlo would have gone down with me. This way he got to live. He got to grieve. He got to pretend he didn't know. Giancarlo's voice dropped. That's what family means, Roman. Making the hard choices so others don't have to. Roman's hand shook. That's not family. That's tyranny. It's survival. Giancarlo took a step forward. And in this world, survival is all that matters. Everything else is sentiment, weakness. The kind of weakness that gets you killed. Ada spoke for the first time since entering the office. Elena says hello. Giancarlo turned to look at her. Elena Quinn, the woman who was supposed to be dead 12 years ago. I assume you've been in contact. She's on a plane to New York right now, with her children, with documents proving you ordered the train accident in Florence, with testimony that links you to the Castellano family, with evidence that will destroy everything you've built. Ada's voice stayed calm, even. And the moment that plane lands at JFK, every federal agency in the country will know exactly what you've done. Giancarlo studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. You're bluffing. Am I? Ada pulled out her phone, showed him the screen. A live flight tracker. Milan to New York. 6 hours remaining. Elena's been documenting everything for 3 months. Every conversation Matteo had in front of her. Every phone call. Every transaction. She's been building a case against your entire operation. And the only reason she hasn't released it yet is because she wanted to give me a chance to get Roman out first. Roman's already out, Giancarlo said. He's standing right here. No? Ada pocketed her phone. He's not with you anymore, which means he's out, which means Elena has no reason to stay quiet. Giancarlo's jaw tightened. You'd burn down everything? The Vance family, the Castellanos, the entire network? Without hesitation. Even if it destroys you too? I've been destroyed before. Ada's eyes were ice. I survived. You won't. Giancarlo looked between them. His face had gone hard, carved from granite. You don't know what you're doing. If you release those documents, it won't just be me who goes down. It'll be hundreds of people, thousands. Families will be torn apart. Lives will be ruined. And for what? Revenge? Justice? Those are words for people who've never had to make real decisions. We're not doing it for revenge, Roman said. We're doing it because it's the only way to stop you. Giancarlo stared at his son. Something flickered behind his eyes. Something that might have been pain, or disappointment, or just cold calculation. Then you leave me no choice, Giancarlo said quietly. He nodded. The 3 men raised their guns. Ara moved first. She grabbed Roman's arm, yanked him sideways. They hit the ground as bullets tore through the air where they'd been standing. Glass shattered. Wood splintered. Roman rolled, came up firing, hit one man in the shoulder. He spun and dropped. Ada had her own gun out now, fired twice. Another man went down. The third man swung his weapon toward Roman. Ada shot him in the chest. He crumpled. Silence. Roman's ears rang. Smoke hung in the air. He looked up. Giancarlo was still standing by the window, untouched, unmoved. That was disappointing, Giancarlo said. Roman climbed to his feet, his gun still pointed at his father. Tell me why. Why what? Why any of this? Why the empire? Why the violence? Why burn everything down just to stay in control? Roman's voice cracked. What's the point? Giancarlo looked at him for a long moment. Then he moved to the desk, sat down in Roman's chair. The leather creaked under his weight. When you were 7 years old, Giancarlo said slowly, you asked me what I did for a living. Do you remember what I told you? Roman didn't answer. I told you I solved problems, that people came to me when they needed help, when they were desperate, when the world had failed them, and I made things right. Giancarlo's hands rested flat on the desk. That was true, for a while. But the problem with solving problems is that eventually you realize the problems never stop. They just multiply. And the only way to stay ahead of them is to control the source, to become the problem and the solution at the same time. That's insane. That's power. Giancarlo leaned back. Real power isn't about money. It's not about respect or fear or any of those things people think matter. Real power is about control, about being the person who decides who eats and who starves, who lives and who dies, who gets to build a life and who gets buried under the rubble of someone else's ambition. He looked directly at Roman. I built an empire because I refused to let anyone else decide my fate, and I raised you the same way, to be strong, to be ruthless, to never depend on anyone but yourself. You raised me to be alone. I raised you to survive. Roman's throat tightened. I don't want to survive like this. Then you'll die like everyone else who was too weak to do what needed to be done. Giancarlo stood. Last chance, Roman. Walk away from her. Come back to the family, and I'll forget this ever happened. Roman looked at Ada. She stood beside him, gun still raised, her face spattered with blood that wasn't hers. She'd killed 3 men in under 10 seconds without hesitating. She'd dismantled Vincent Castellanos' empire in a single conversation. She'd spent 4 years infiltrating Roman's life and turned it inside out. And she was the only person in the world who'd ever told him the truth. Roman turned back to his father. No. Giancarlo nodded slowly. Then we're done here. He reached for something under the desk. Roman fired. The bullet caught Giancarlo in the shoulder. He jerked back. His hand stopped moving. Don't, Roman said. Blood spread across Giancarlo's shirt. He looked down at it, almost curious. Then he looked up at Roman and smiled. There it is. The thing I've been waiting for. The moment you finally became my son. I'm nothing like you. You just shot your own father. Giancarlo pressed his hand against the wound. Blood seeped between his fingers. That's exactly like me. Roman's hand trembled. I gave you a choice. And I made mine. Giancarlo leaned against the desk. His face had gone pale. Carlo's outside. Buildings surrounded. Even if you make it to the elevator, you won't make it to the street. My men are everywhere. And when they find out what you did, they won't find out. Ada moved to the desk, started going through the drawers. Because we're walking out of here, and you're coming with us. As a hostage? As insurance. Giancarlo laughed. It turned into a cough. You think my men care about my life? You think they'll let you walk out just because you've got a gun to my head? No. Ada pulled out a set of keys, car keys. But they'll let us walk out if they think you're already dead. She looked at Roman. Help me move him. They dragged Giancarlo toward the private bathroom at the back of the office. He didn't fight, just bled steadily across the hardwood floor. They got him into the bathroom, sat him down against the tub. You won't make it, Giancarlo said. His voice was weaker now, thready. Even if you get past Carlo, even if you make it to the street, I've got people in every corner of this city. They'll hunt you down. And when they find you, they won't, Ada said, because by morning, you won't have an empire left to hunt us with. She pulled out her phone, sent a message. Then she looked at Roman. Elena's releasing everything, right now. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence she's collected. It's all going public. Giancarlo's eyes widened. You're destroying decades of work, hundreds of lives. I'm burning down a system that should have never existed in the first place. Ara pocketed her phone. And if some innocent people get caught in the fire, they should have chosen better friends. She turned and walked out of the bathroom. Roman stood there for a moment longer, looking at his father, this man who'd shaped his entire life, who taught him to be strong and ruthless and empty, who'd loved him the only way he knew how, which was to say violently, possessively, without ever understanding that love wasn't supposed to hurt. I'm sorry, Roman said quietly. Giancarlo met his eyes. No, you're not, and you shouldn't be. You did what you had to do, just like I always did. That's the only lesson that ever mattered. Roman turned and followed Ara out of the bathroom, closed the door behind him, locked it. They moved through the office. Ara grabbed the files from Vincent's vault that they'd left in the conference room, stuffed them into a bag. Roman kept his gun raised, scanning for threats. But the office was silent, empty. Everyone who'd been there was already dead. They reached the elevator. Ara pressed the button. The doors opened immediately. They stepped inside. As the doors closed, Roman caught one last glimpse of his office. The shattered glass, the bodies, the blood pooling on the hardwood, everything he'd built in the last 5 years lying in ruins. The elevator descended. Marco's waiting 2 blocks away, Ara said. We go out the back, through the service entrance. Stay quiet, stay fast. Roman nodded. He couldn't speak. His chest felt hollow, like something inside him had been torn out and thrown away. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened onto a service hallway. Concrete walls. Flickering fluorescent lights. They moved quickly. Roman's shoes echoed against the floor. Behind them, somewhere above, an alarm started wailing. They hit the back door at a run, pushed through. The night air hit Roman's face like a slap. Cold, clean, real. Marco was idling at the corner in a different car, a nondescript sedan. They piled in. Marco didn't ask questions, just drove. Behind them, Vance Tower rose into the night. Lights coming on floor by floor as security teams flooded the building. Sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer. Where to? Marco asked. Ara pulled out her phone, checked something. JFK, Elena's plane lands in 4 hours. We meet her there. And then what? And then we disappear. They drove through the empty streets. Manhattan blurred past. Roman watched the city slide away and felt nothing. No relief, no victory. Just a vast emptiness that threatened to swallow him whole. His phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. It's done. Every document's live. Every agency has it. Giancarlo Vance's empire is finished. So is Vincent Castellanos. So is everyone who ever worked with them. You won. Congratulations. Roman stared at the message. Then he turned the phone off. Dropped it on the floor of the car. You okay? Ara asked quietly. I shot my father. You stopped him. There's a difference. Is there? Ara didn't answer, just looked out the window at the city burning in their wake. They reached JFK at 6 in the morning. The terminal was already crowded. Business travelers, families, people moving through their lives like nothing had changed, like the world hadn't just tilted on its axis. Roman and Ara sat in a coffee shop near the International Arrivals Gate. Marco waited with the car. They didn't talk. Just drank bad coffee and watched the arrivals board update flight information. At 6:47, the Milan flight landed. 20 minutes later, passengers started streaming through the gate. Roman scanned the crowd, looking for a face he'd only seen in photographs, a face that looked like Ara's but different, older, harder. Then he saw her. Elena Quinn looked exactly like her sister, same dark hair, same sharp eyes. But where Ara carried herself like a weapon, Elena moved like someone who'd spent 12 years learning to be invisible. 2 children flanked her, a girl around 11 with serious eyes and dark braids, a boy maybe 9 with Matteo Castellano's nose and Elena's smile. Ara stood, walked toward them. The sisters met in the middle of the terminal. Elena dropped her bags, grabbed Ara, held on like she was drowning. Ara's face crumpled, just for a second. Then she pulled it back together. Roman watched from a distance. The two children stood awkwardly beside their mother, not quite sure what was happening, not quite sure who these people were. After a long moment, the sisters separated. Elena wiped her eyes, said something. Ara responded. Then Elena looked at Roman. She walked over, left the children with Ara, stood in front of Roman with her arms crossed. "You're Roman Vance," she said. Her English was perfect, unaccented. "Yeah. Matteo talked about you, said you were weak, said you didn't have what it takes to survive in this world." Roman didn't respond. "He was wrong," Elena continued. "Anyone who can stand up to their own father the way Ara says you did isn't weak, but you're not strong either. You're just human. And in this world, that's the most dangerous thing to be." "I'm sorry," Roman said, "for what my family did to you, for the train, for everything." Elena studied his face. Then she shook her head. "Don't apologize for things you didn't do. It makes you sound like you think you're responsible for every bad thing in the world. You're not. You're just one person trying to survive, same as the rest of us." She turned and walked back to her children. Ara appeared beside Roman. "She wants to go somewhere quiet, somewhere the kids can have a normal life. I told her we'd help her get settled, new identities, new city, whatever she needs." "Okay." "Marco's got a place lined up. Montana, middle of nowhere. She'll be safe there." "Good." They stood in silence for a moment, watching Elena gather her children, watching the terminal fill with people starting their days. "What about us, Wu?" Roman asked finally. "What do you mean? Where do we go? What do we do?" Roman looked at her. "I've got nothing left, Ara. No empire, no family, no money. It's all gone." Ara's mouth curved into a small smile. "Not all gone. I moved some money around before we went to the warehouse. About 12 million, offshore, untraceable. It's not everything, but it's enough to start over." Roman stared. "You stole from my accounts?" "I liberated assets that were going to be seized by federal authorities anyway. You're welcome." Despite everything, Roman laughed. It was a hollow sound, but it was something. "So what now? Now we disappear for a while. Let everything cool down. Let the authorities tear apart what's left of the network. And then," Ara's eyes met his, "we build something new, something that doesn't require lying, or killing, or destroying ourselves to stay alive. You think that's possible?" "I don't know, but I'd like to find out." Roman nodded slowly. "Okay." "Okay? Yeah, let's find out." 1 year later, the skyline of Manhattan looked different from the 42nd floor of the building that used to be called Vance Tower. The name had changed, the ownership had changed, everything had changed, but the view was still the same. Roman stood at the window watching the city burn gold in the afternoon sun. Behind him, the office was being renovated, walls torn down, new paint, new furniture, turning it into something unrecognizable. Good. He'd spent the last year in Montana with Elena and her children, helping them settle, helping Lucia and Marco adjust to their new school, helping Elena process 12 years of trauma. It had been quiet, peaceful, the kind of life Roman never thought he'd want. But he'd taken it anyway. Because after everything that had happened, quiet felt like a gift. Ara had stayed with them for 6 months. Then she'd started traveling, following leads, tracking down the last pieces of Giancarlo's network, making sure nothing survived that could come back to hurt them. She'd returned 3 weeks ago, showed up at the cabin door with new information, new plans, new possibilities, and now they were here, back in New York, standing in the ruins of Roman's old life. "You sure about this?" Ara's voice came from behind him. Roman turned. She stood in the doorway wearing jeans and a blazer. Her hair was shorter now. She looked different, lighter, like she'd set down something heavy. "About what?" "This." She gestured at the office. "Coming back here. I thought you wanted to stay away from the city." "I did. But Elena convinced me that running from it wasn't the same as being free of it." Roman moved away from the window. "Besides, someone has to make sure this building doesn't just become another monument to violence. So you bought it." "We bought it." Roman pulled an envelope from his pocket, handed it to her. 50-50 partnership. Your name's on the deed." Otto opened the envelope, read the documents inside, looked up. What is this? A clean slate for both of us. Roman gestured at the empty office. We spent 4 years building an empire on lies. I figure we can spend the next 4 years building something real, something that doesn't require hurting people to survive. What kind of something? I don't know yet, but I think that's the point. Roman met her eyes. We get to decide. Together. No fathers pulling strings, no organizations controlling us. Just us figuring it out. Ara stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was small, genuine. The first real smile he'd seen from her since that night at Delmonico's when everything changed. Okay, she said. Okay? Yeah. Let's build something real. They stood there in the empty office as afternoon light poured through the windows. Below them, Manhattan moved through its rhythms. People working, fighting, surviving, building lives from whatever pieces they could find. And high above it all, on the 42nd floor of a building that used to represent everything dark and violent and corrupt, two people who'd destroyed an empire decided to build something better. It wouldn't be easy, it wouldn't be safe, but it would be theirs. And in a world that had spent years trying to break them, that felt like victory. 6 months after that. The sign beside the elevator on the 42nd floor read, Vance and Quinn, Private Investigations and Security Consulting. The office looked nothing like it used to. The dark wood was gone, replaced with clean lines and open space, natural light, plants, 2 desks facing each other in the main office, one with Roman's name, one with Ara's. They worked mostly legitimate cases now, corporate fraud, missing persons, security consulting for businesses that wanted protection without the stain of organized crime. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't powerful, but it was honest. And after everything they'd been through, honest felt revolutionary. Elena visited once a month, brought the kids. They'd started calling Roman and Ara aunt and uncle. It wasn't quite accurate, but it felt right anyway. Family wasn't always about blood. Sometimes it was just about choosing to show up for people when everything fell apart. Vincent Castellano had gone to prison. 25 years. No parole. His empire had fractured into a dozen smaller operations that spent more time fighting each other than controlling territory. The Calabrian syndicate had withdrawn from New York entirely. Too much heat, too much exposure. Carlo Vance had disappeared. Rumors said he'd fled to Mexico. Others said Argentina. Roman didn't care. His uncle was a ghost, and ghosts couldn't hurt you unless you let them. Giancarlo Vance had died in police custody 3 weeks after his arrest. Heart attack. The official report said natural causes. Roman suspected otherwise. In that world, men who knew too much rarely died peacefully, but he'd stopped digging into it after the first month. Some answers weren't worth finding. His mother had called once, asked if he was okay, asked if he needed anything. Roman had told her the truth, that he was better than okay, that for the first time in his life, he was actually living instead of just surviving. She'd cried. Then she'd hung up. They hadn't spoken since. Maybe someday they would. Maybe someday Roman would be ready to forgive her for all the things she'd known and never said. But not yet. Not while the wounds were still fresh. For now, he had work. He had Ara. He had Elena and the kids. He had Marco, who decided to stay on as their investigator. He had a life that was his own, built from scratch, clean. On a gray afternoon in October, Roman sat at his desk reviewing case files when Ara's phone rang. She answered, listened. Her expression shifted, hardened. She hung up, looked at Roman. What? He asked. That was the FBI. They found something in the last batch of Giancarlo's documents, something they think we should see. What kind of something? A list of names. People who were working for your father. People who are still active. Ara stood. One of those names is someone we know. Roman's chest tightened. Who? They wouldn't say over the phone. They want us to come in, tomorrow morning. Roman closed the file he'd been reading, looked out the window at the city. The sun was setting, turning everything gold and red, beautiful and dangerous. You think it's over? He asked quietly. Ara moved to stand beside him. No, I think some things are never really over. They just change shape. She looked at him. But I think we're strong enough to handle whatever comes next. Roman nodded. Together? Together. They stood at the window watching the city burn itself into night, and somewhere in the darkness, the ghosts of the empire they'd destroyed whispered warnings about the cost of freedom. But Roman and Ara had already paid that cost. In blood. In loss. In the complete destruction of everything they'd once believed about themselves. And they'd survived. Not because they were stronger than anyone else. Not because they were smarter or more ruthless or more deserving. But because when the world had tried to break them, they'd refused to break alone. They'd found each other in the wreckage. And they'd built something new from the ruins. That was the story. Not a tale of redemption. Not a fantasy about good triumphing over evil. Just the raw, messy truth of two broken people choosing to be broken together instead of destroyed apart. And in the end, that was enough. The city kept burning. The ghosts kept whispering. And high above it all, in an office that had once been a temple to violence, two people decided that surviving wasn't the same as living. So they chose to live. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. And that was the only victory that ever really mattered.